Game of Thrones.
I have not watched.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's okay.
It's not. So it's not worth talking about too much, other than to say, you know, this is this is amongst the many mediocre episodes this season. Is the one that's the most starkly just an outline, unadorned. There's no big dragon battle or anything to look forward to. It's just every single scene that happens, and there's no egregiously horrible scenes like the scene with what's her head drinking the poison. But no. But the problem here is that there's every single scene consists of the characters saying the minimal necessary plot things that are needed to be said in that scene, unadorned. It's not like the dialogue has been spiced up to be accurate to character or have subtext or anything like that. It's just the unadorned recitation of the minimally necessary plot things for that scene to be complete, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And sure, the plot advances real quick, and it's moving really fast, blah, blah, blah. Fast is okay, but it's literally just, this is the most stark example of a completely unadorned outline for an episode.
Yeah, the entirety of the dialogue in this episode was basically summed down to, we need to go here, we need to do this. We can't do that. We need to do that.
Well, I think
like this proceed to do that.
This episode specifically, and I was talking to Cliff about this after the episode, it highlights so hard what this whole season has been, which is like, one, yes, it is like a fucking outline, and they're just hitting all little points as they go along, but the pacing issues are so fucking... They're just stark in this episode. Stark,
very clever.
Oh, I'm so clever. But no, like they're just like the pacing issues are staring you in the face the entire episode. Or it's like in the same episode we get, you know, Jorah returning, Jorah hanging out.
Spoilers, you guys.
Oh no,
you guys.
Jorah hanging out with everyone, volunteering to go to the north, and then being in the north, like all in the same, all of these things happen, like things that like normally would take multiple episodes to like build up to.
Oh, by the way, guys, when I say unadorned here, this is something, Kyle, you can probably remember from the previous episode. Say you've been looking forward in the series, for example, to when Sansa and Arya meet again after many years' absence, and when they actually meet, what it consists of is Sansa is in a room and Arya's in a room.
Look, they're in the same room.
Look, they're in the same room, and that's it. Likewise, with this, it's even more clear when they're... in the special feature after the episode, amongst the special features after the episode, said, you know, get inside the touching moment when Jorah re-meets what's-her-head. There's no touching moment. What it consists of is Daenerys is there, and then Jorah gets there, and then they're both there for a second. They say, unadorned and unemotionally, several plot things, and then he's gone.
You have healed yourself. I have healed myself.
No, literally, no, it's like the weird Dothraki guy. He's like, this man says he's your friend. He is my friend. Like, oh god, fuck that scene.
So it's like, again, it's just pacing would be fine. Fast pace is okay. Fast pace is fine if there is some art to it.
Yeah,
if you try to have drama and tears and some subtext and some passion, there's none of that. It's just even the things which obviously must call for it. The scene calls for some emotions here. The scene, the pattern is established, because in that Arya and Sansa meeting, I was like, there's a part of me that thought, are they just trying to do a thing where they show that they're both kind of cold bitches who have no emotions anymore, and is that a thing they're trying to do? But then when they do it with two entirely different characters and in a different context, and they also show no emotions, they just say the things of seeing each other. So you're back and you healed yourself. Yes, I healed myself. I wouldn't be here otherwise. And good, and that's done. It's like, no, that wasn't a thing. It's like there's nothing else there. There's nothing else there.
This is another thing that in previous seasons there has often been a kind of stoicism or an emotional reserve to scenes in Game of Thrones, but it would be because the on top of the outline, things would be built to a place where characters' motivations and their relationships to each other were complex and conflicted. So one could not be unreservedly happy or unreservedly sad or unreservedly friendly, because there were many things throwing people into conflict all of the time. And so it was always, you know, every little victory was with had some little stain upon it or some little thing. And so there was an element of emotional reserve to a lot of the series. There was not a lot of exuberant joy, let me put it that way,
Sure.
in the series. So now they don't have that conflict. Everything is just sits there on its face. So when Jorah comes back, there's nothing there to make her, and I haven't even seen this episode, but there's nothing there to make her feel this way. Or when Jon meets Daenerys, there is nothing there to make anyone feel any particular way, in any way conflicted. I was saying this when I was talking to my girlfriend about it. Like when Jon arrives, old school Game of Thrones, she should, like, execute the Onion Knight for some offense or something like that, because because somehow, like, by serving him and he's not the king in the north, and she needs to show strength and show Jon that she's not fucking around, so she kills the guy he's with thinking that he's some sort of so-and-so, or maybe one of her subordinates kills him, so all of a sudden they have to be friends. But at the same time, now Jon Snow wants to kill Daenerys because she killed the Onion Knight, and Daenerys wants to blah, and like that's old school Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And instead they're just in a room together.
Yep.
And yet they are behaving with this level of stoicism and reserve that one would expect from a series with all of that weight and all of that conflict and all of that complexity behind it. But there's no complexity.
Yeah, there's no
reason for them not to just high-five each other.
And this is the thing which I think confusing many people who aren't like super smart like me, who can see these things as multiple parts. But it's like a lot of folks who are watching the series have emotional investment in these characters from having watched the series before, and are given the illusion that those characters still exist in this show because it's the same actors with the same face and voice, also in costumes, there. It's an illusion. There is no Daenerys anymore. That character no longer exists. It's the same actress, also in a costume, with the same face and voice, saying things.
Same wigs.
That character isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Jon Snow doesn't exist anymore. All these characters literally don't exist in the show anymore. That is an illusion created by the fact that they trotted out the same actor who's still getting paid a lot of money, hopefully, but has kind of looked at the script and it's like, yeesh, what can I do with this?
We're all slowly realizing that the people who are in front of the camera weren't making up those words the whole time.
Yeah.
It turns out that Amelia Clark, or whatever the fuck her name is not a badass smart lady who is a freer of slaves.
She doesn't need to be.
She's just some dumb actress, and there's just some dumb writers behind it. And now it's like as I've said before, the teleprompter has shorted out, and now they're just up there just trying to make it up as they go along.
Yeah, it's there's a few things about there's only 7, maybe 8 full episodes of Game of Thrones left.
Yeah.
It's 2 in this season
8,
and 6 next season.
Too many.
So it's maybe too many
yeah.
at this point. There's a couple things that struck me. One is the characters aren't acting like they've been built up to the characters they were. To what Cliff is saying, they're not there anymore. Like Daenerys is basically now this caricature of her father for no fucking reason, who she never was like to begin with.
Yes,
and
they've taken in recent episodes the idea of like writing this strong and complex female character and just turned it into she's kind of cunty boss lady, and like that's really it. And like this goes from like when in the middle of episode 1 or 2, she just for no reason like dresses down Varys, and it just seems like what is it that, and it really seems to again be because they needed Varys to say some things, and because they needed words to come out of Varys' mouth to bring us up to speed on where he's coming from. They were like, well, what if she starts yelling at him? And that essentially her bearing throughout the whole thing is just cunty boss lady, and that's it from now on.
So one of the silly things about the Varys thing is that if you're like, it's evidence they're focusing on the wrong things, because if you're following the show, Varys somehow goes from like actually plotting the assassination of Daenerys to hanging out with her. In the books, this makes sense because he's actually backing someone else, like for the Iron Throne. He's backing a character that does not appear in the show. Period. So for whatever reason, the writers were like, we can't just have Varys go, I'm on your side now. We must now have a whole scene to explain it for no reason.
Yeah, I would
as
not.
No one was paying attention to that, and it didn't matter.
It did not matter.
Another thing that strikes me about this episode is that it seemed like And they even fucking mention it. Okay, so the whole thing about the end of the episodes, they do the inside this episode. That is now becoming a necessary part to try and understand what is going on because
it's not on the screen.
So poorly written and put on the screen.
That's why that special feature was. That's why that special feature was titled "The Touching Re-Meeting."
They need to explain
it was
it. There's like a moment,
crazy.
There's even one where like DB Weiss or whatever is sitting there and he's like, you can tell this raw sexual tension between John and Dan.
It's like, no, dude, I can't.
They're like two mannequins who are standing next to each
seriously,
other in the store window.
I remember his exact words. I think were when they go into the cage. It's like, plus as they're trying to reconcile this stuff with his interest in the North and her and his blah blah. He goes, and plus they're having to deal with the fact that they're clearly so attracted to each other. I'm like, are they? They're both in a room and there's a torch.
There's even this moment in this episode. You'll see it where he's like, I have to leave, and she's like, I haven't given you permission to leave yet. And I was like, this is your fucking best bet. Like, this is, you guys are getting paid millions of dollars to make the show, and that's the dialogue that you're choosing to make.
And it's becoming like tremendously clear to me that like at this point, like the reason why it is like 7 episodes and 6 episodes is because
there's only so many things they can refer to.
Stop. One, it's like, yeah, they're not good writers and don't know how to make it work out. But 2, they are so done with this.
Yeah.
Like, and also I do have a little bit of sympathy for them, only a slight bit, because you know that like when they first like put this thing together, they're like, sweet, those other 2 books will be done by then. It's gonna be fine. We'll be able to adapt this very well. It's going to work out. Yeah. And now they're like sitting there like, in a raft in the middle of the ocean, like, fuck, let's just get out of here. Let's get out.
But basically, like, they're the handsome guy in like Cyrano de Bergerac, which is like George R.R. Martin is hiding underneath the balcony, like feeding them lines, and they get to look really good.
Like,
wait,
I have the perfect solution to the whole problem. Ready, guys?
We watch Roxanne.
No, we need to. They need to have an intervention here, real quick, where we just level with George R.R. Martin. George, stop writing these fucking books. Yeah. You're not going to live long enough to finish it. We all know it. You have diabetes. It's not going to happen.
He definitely has diabetes.
So what you're going to do is the time you would spend writing the books, you're going to instead spend doing punch-ups on the show for these remaining episodes, such as they are. Just add a little bit that R.R. Martin spin, that R.R. Martin vibe.
Yeah, that's right. He will just and then as he begins to write them away, kind of like Jorah, he'll begin to lose like body parts to his sickness, like a foot or something to diabetes.
Hey, he doesn't need much. He can totally be Stephen Hawking in a chair, vaguely paralyzed. But if he can move one finger, he can still do punch-ups on the fucking screenplay.
He'll be in that iron lung.
That is actually really great though, because it is one of those things where it's like we often talk about like
Brandon,
the whole thing,
especially the later seasons. They're so important to me.
We've been talking about a lot how like the book seasons versus the now seasons, and the marked difference. The other thing in the book seasons was George R.R. Martin was literally writing episodes of the show.
That's a good point.
Like he was actually involved in the show, and at a certain point. I don't actually. One of the things that I've heard, I don't know, who knows, could just be internet gossip, but apparently he's not super happy about the show.
Why would he
either.
be?
Yeah,
and like I know he broke off from the show to go finish the books, obviously, but also like, dude, just write a couple scripts even. That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
The thing that's most frustrating to me about this, and we're beating a dead horse here, but the thing that's most frustrating to me about this is we've talked about how it feels like fan fiction. We talked about how quickly it moves. We talked about how none of the characters are there, but there's also no creativity to the plot that they're putting out there. Yeah. They literally talk about how they're recycling plot lines. It's like this episode had a handful of moments where they literally were like, we need to fucking put something here. Okay, well, didn't Aerys the Mad King burn Ned Stark's father and brother? Great. Let's have Daenerys burn Samwell Tarly's father and brother. Well, didn't Littlefinger trick some people by making them think that they're following him when he's actually leading them on before? Yeah, let's have him do that again this season. And it's like, didn't they talk about bringing a White Walker down to King's Landing at some point to convince them that they're actually zombies? Yeah, that didn't work. Fuck it, let's have him do it again today. And it's like every plot point in this episode was, well, we did this in seasons 1 through 6. Why don't we just do it again?
And even here's the thing: even if they are operating off of beat by beat outline from George R.R. Martin, which is unlikely. Still, if he were writing these things, he would, even if the same thing happened, he'd find a way to misdirect you so that the thing that he actually wanted to happen would still seem somewhat like a surprise.
Yes, that is the other thing, is that something, and this is I'm going to cringe just saying this phrase out loud, but it's something that they emphasize when you're talking about screenwriting or any kind of writing, is the idea of the surprising but inevitable. So you have to figure out a way to set something up, and this is just, I hate saying it's writing 101, but
it literally is.
Yes, but you have to find a way to make something that is coming set it up sufficiently that will not feel like it's coming completely out of left field, so that it will make sense, so it will be interpretable at the moment of revelation, and yet deftly set it up in such a way so that the audience expectation of where it's going to go is different, so that when it comes, you realize the inevitability of what happens, but at the same time, it is still surprising. And yet, in this, instead, what we keep getting again and again, and this is really, I think, at the heart of why we keep calling it an outline, is that the story, scenes, episodes, moments before it goes in a direction, it points directly to where it's going. And that's why it feels like an outline and not a fully written story. In that, if someone, it's like we're like days before, episodes before the Jon and Daenerys meet, we are told that it's going to happen. We are pushed in that direction. We know kind of how we're expecting them to feel about each other in our kind of just dumb story forecasting brain. Oh, they're both good people. They'll probably get along. And then that's exactly what happens when we get there. There's nothing. It's just, at this point, it's like someone just, it's like you go to a concert and then after the break, the band comes out and says, now we're going to play our second album in its entirety. And you're like, that kind of ruins it for me, because now I know all the songs and what order they're coming in, so any sense of surprise or expectation or excitement about where, I know exactly what the rest of the concert's going to be now, and so I think I'm just going to go home. And that's kind of what it feels like. Like, I know what the rest of the concert is, so I just kind of want to go home.